Hey you guys, I'm really excited for you guys to do this project. You're studying one of the elements of art. It's called texture, and it's not something that our teachers teach a lot about, but texture is actually really important in art. So you're actually making a texture magazine, or sometimes people shorten it up and call it a zine. I would love for you to watch this. This is a great video about texture that is probably designed for high schoolers just because they talk about implied versus real texture. So I do want you to watch this video. It's kind of catchy and it'll be stuck in your head, which makes me laugh. I wanted to show you examples of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about texture. Right here you'll actually see examples of real texture. Carpet, looks like snake skin, rugs. These are anything that you just want to touch. That's an example of texture. Artists manipulate texture a lot, and they do some really interesting stuff. I love this piece of artwork. Um, and the reason why I love it is because, first of all, obviously it's strange that you have a cup and a spoon and a saucer that are covered in fur. But what is the number one thing that you want to do when you see this piece of artwork? I don't know about you, but I would have to touch that piece of art. And it's funny because you're not supposed to touch people's artwork, especially in a gallery. And so this artist was actually kind of having a little fun by making something that you just desperately want to touch, but you're not supposed to touch. So it kind of makes you feel uncomfortable because you just have to touch that. This artist made something that went the opposite direction. Rather than soft and furry, actually made something that was hard and pokey, made it out of screws. It looks like a huge human that's made out of screws. And then this bottom artist is famous. His name is Jeff Koons, and he made this huge sculpture that looks like a balloon animal, but it's actually made out of steel and it's huge. So these are artists that kind of play with texture. Now, I thought it would be a lot of fun for you guys to actually do a texture hunt in your house. So I would love, if you can, and if your parents will let you borrow their phone to take a picture if you have a camera, go around the house and just look for interesting textures and take a picture of it close up. So I was out and about and I took this picture and I wanted to see if you guys could guess what texture this is. What is that? What does that look like it's from? Then, after you take a picture of it close up to see if people can guess it, what I want you to do is then take a picture of it back out so people can see what it was. And as you can see, this texture is actually from a sheep that is where my daughter rides horses. And I was just wandering around while she was riding and I took a picture of that. So that's what that texture was. Let's see how well you do this time. What is this texture? I think you could guess that it's probably metal, but what do you think it's from? So I took a very close-up shot. I would love to see you guys take close-up shots. Now let's find out what it is. It was actually from the inside of an elevator. Somebody had taken this steel and made this texture on it, so it actually made it look a little more interesting. So you guys get the idea? You take a picture of something up close with texture on it and then back up so we can try to guess what it is. One last one. What do you think this one is? I don't think you'll get this one. I don't think I would get this one. So this is a close-up shot of this sculpture. Actually, you can see in the bottom corner right here, it's a hubcap. And someone took hubcaps and put them in these perfect rows and made this sculpture downtown. So if you get a chance, I would love to see you go on a texture hunt and post one picture, the close-up picture, and post it on the Google Stream and see if we can guess it. And then you'll have to post the second picture so you can tell us what it was. Now, this is what your project is basically going to be. After you've kind of done a texture hunt in your house and taken pictures and posted it, what I would love is for you to just get a scrap piece of paper. Normally we do this in your sketchbooks, but get a scrap piece of paper and practice drawing the texture that you saw in the texture song video and in this video that's coming up next where I explain and show you what your art project is going to look like. So practice it first. Then get out your plain piece of paper and make your magazine. And again, the directions are going to be step by step in this next video. And then see on the very last page if you can add some real texture. And I also talk about that texture treasure hunt. And then finally, If you can, take a photo of your zine, or even better, a video of you flipping through the pages so I can see your drawings of the texture, and then try to post it to the Google Classroom so I can see it and the rest of the class can see it. Alright, so you guys, here are the step-by-step directions on how to make your zine. First, I'm going to lay out the materials you need. I move really fast. I'm like ninja fast. Look at that. Anyway, so these are the things that you need. If you don't have exactly the materials, don't worry about it. Use whatever you have. I don't care at all. It's just about practice. So anyway, you can pause that and see what you need, but you're going to start with just a pencil in your sketchbook. And when you open it up, you're going to just start with a circle. And if you can't draw a perfect circle, find something to trace. Doesn't matter. And you're going to start with drawing the hairy texture. I zoom in a little bit so you can see more detail. Hairy texture is pretty simple. It's just a lot of small little lines. On the left-hand side, they kind of stick out the left side, and on the right-hand side, they stick out the right side. And you see I did a little shadow there too, but hairy is pretty simple. It's just lines. It's not scribbling, it's just lines. The next texture that you're going to play with a little bit is smooth. Now you see how I did it very dark on the bottom? That's because the shadows are on the bottom more. And then I just get lighter and lighter, and then you see that you actually can put your pencil down and use your finger. And when you use your finger, it kind of smooths it out, because that's what we're going for, is the smooth texture. And then I drew a little shadow underneath if you want to try that. Draw another circle, and then this one is kind of fun. This is slimy. Now slimy is just actually a bunch of wavy lines, and you kind of draw some drips going down, and then sometimes just wavy lines in the middle. But what really makes it look like the slime is oozing down is, do you see right now what I'm doing is I'm going underneath and I'm just drawing a little bit of shadow underneath those wavy lines, and what that does is it makes it look like the ooze is coming off and it's casting a shadow on the ball. So if you can try to play with shading a little bit when you draw that ooze. The next one is bumpy, and drawing bumpy is pretty simple. It's actually like drawing little mini circles all over, but if you see, I'm actually not even drawing the whole circle. It's almost like I'm just drawing a C. But what really, again, makes the bumpy look amazing is if you draw little shadows on the bottoms of those circles, because then it looks like those bumps are sticking out. That's the trick that artists use, is they draw shadows being cast so it looks like it's 3D. So try it. It's not going to be perfect, but give it a shot. That's why we're drawing in our sketchbooks. It doesn't matter if it looks perfect or not. And then you see again, I try to draw a little shadow underneath. Shadows are just kind of like a real thin line. I'm going back in and add a little more shadow, but if you shade underneath the bottoms of those circles, it looks pretty bumpy. The last circle that we're going to draw in our sketchbook is the pointy one in that video. And drawing a pointy one is pretty simple. Well, it's not. It's pretty hard actually. I started by just drawing triangles, and I drew 5 triangles all together, and actually if you put 5 triangles together it makes a pentagon, as you can see. But then I just did some triangles going off of that, and then I shaded some of the triangles more than the others. But now you're going to start folding your zine. You start by doing a hamburger fold, which is right down the middle. And I use a ruler to sometimes make those edges perfect. You can see me do that. And then you fold it in half again. Then you're going to fold it in half one more time. Now you guys, here's the best part about video, is it goes really fast, so please feel free to stop it, rewind it, and watch this again, because you're going to unfold this, and then you're going to cut along one of your lines, but it has to be along the fold line, so please make sure you're cutting along the right thing. Then you're just going to cut it right in half, and then I love this because it looks like Charlie Brown's teacher when she's talking. And so now, after you've paused it and gone back and made sure that you've gotten all your folds down and made sure that they're perfect, you can see that it actually opens up like a book. And that's when we get to start doing the fun stuff, which is start actually adding the textures on each page of your little zine. See, you can flip through it just like a magazine. I love it.
2,000 years later.
Now, because I don't want you sitting there watching this for 2,000 years, I just fast forwarded and showed you that basically I drew in my book a slime texture on the first page using green colored pencils. On the second page I used brown colored pencils to draw the hairy one. And I already showed you how to draw these things and you practiced them before, so we're just going to blaze through this. On the third page I did the smooth, making sure that I smoothed it out with my finger. On the fourth page I used 3 red color pencils and I did the bumpy one. Don't forget to draw those shadows because that's really what makes those bumps look like they're sticking out in 3D. So you can see that I did that. But now at this point I'm going to stop for a Lulu break. Oh, Lulu, you're so good. Anyway, right back at it. So this time I'm actually using some blues, and I already showed you how to draw this, but I want to show you one more time because again, this is the pointy texture, and you don't have to do the pointy texture. You don't have to do any of these textures. You can make up your own if you want, but you see I started with just triangles all over, but then I tried to shade some darker, some lighter, and that difference in value is what really makes them look pointy. And you can see I did a little bit of straight along the edges, but I also used darker colors and darker blues and lighter blues to shade and shadow those in. That's one of the harder textures, so if you tried it, even if it doesn't look perfect, I love it. See how I added a little shadow underneath? Now I'm using brown to do a crumbly one. Now that was in that texture video. I didn't show you how to draw the crumbly one, but basically it's just kind of like bumpy, except a little smaller half circles. And don't forget to shade. It's almost like a combination of the smooth texture and the bumpy texture because they have those. And then I drew little crumbles along the bottom and I drew a little shadow underneath. I cannot wait to see how your shading and shadowing are going, and I love the fact that you're just trying. Now, on the very back, this is where it's going to get interesting. I'm drawing a little person because what I want you to do is I want you to try to go on a hunt through your house to see if you can find something with texture. I went on a hunt in my art room and I found a mustache, which has great texture. So I'm drawing just like a little character. It's almost like the smooth texture, but I put eyes on it. And then you'll see I actually take some squeezy glue and I drop on a mustache because I wanted to see if you guys could add some real texture to the back side of your book. It could be fabric, it could be yarn. Uh-oh.
Little attack. You're so tough.
Anyway, you could use yarn, you could use tin foil, you could use all kinds of stuff for different texture. Now, the last thing is I need you to make a cover for this thing. I spent a lot of time on this just because I love doing art. So I actually wrote the word texture zine on the front cover, but I did it with different textures. You don't have to do that because you guys have been working on this for a long time. But I love how it looked. So I did slimy for the zine, the word zine, but with texture I did all kinds of different texture. You guys are welcome to make whatever kind of cover you want, but it should be related somehow to texture. And then underneath all of the different textures that I wrote, I actually wrote the textures that I drew. So slimy and hairy on the first page, smooth and bumpy on the next couple pages, pointy and crumbly on the next two, and then mustachy. Did I spell mustachy correctly? You bet I did, because I just made it up. Anyway, great job, you guys. I can't wait to see these zines.